Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Criterion Connection. I'm Joe.
And I'm Scott. You thought you were done with me, but you're not, because I'm back for another one.
Yep, and we're here doing a review of Todd Browning's Freaks from 1932.
Which, in a different time period, would be considered appropriate for the spooky season. You know, it's October and everything. But now we know, not just with modern lens, but honestly, when you just watch the movie, the only thing really scary about this movie is the depths people will sing to for money.
Yeah, so this is something that's often cited as like one of those early like big horror movies, and it's mainly for that one sequence at the end.
I mean, that I would say even for that era, that's a bit of a stretch.
I'm just saying.
No. I know. Like I know like the history that this movie has with that and everything. But like to me, I'm not like I wouldn't call myself an expert of movies of this era, but I've seen worse from this era. I think it has to do not so much with the movie itself as far as like writing and like the types of scenes, but more so to do with the cast.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that has to do with the cast and the level of insensitivity. Because for years this movie was deemed very inappropriate and very insensitive to like the handicapped and I don't know what appropriate word you would use, so I'll use that word, but in the comments if you want to put a more appropriate word, I would love to know because I don't want to be rude. But you know, when you watch the movie, especially for that time period, it's actually very empowering.
Yeah,
I would say to those kinds of people, you know, because like
it brings light to a lot of the like dehumanization of those people,
right? I mean, if you think about it, the Hans, the little guy, mm-hmm. you know, he's pretty much the star of the movie, mm-hmm. and I mean, not just for that time period. I don't think Peter Dinklage has ever been like the main star in a movie, and if he did, it wasn't. It came out recently because I can't think of that, and he's like the most well-known little person actor. Mm-hmm. And if anyone's gonna get a role like that these days, it would be him. So for someone all the way back in 1932 to have a role like that and to be very important to the plot of a film, no less, like that's a huge deal.
Yeah. And
it's amazing that's. People like to use the phrase, look how far we've come, but literally, like, look how far we've come.
Yeah.
From 1932 to, like, Peter Dinklage not really getting his due until, like, I don't know, the 2000s, maybe 2010s.
Yeah.
And you know, it's kind of amazing when you think about it, but also it's, like, kind of frustrating that it took so long to get there.
Yeah. So this film is about a troupe of carnival employees. They were used in the, I guess, titular adjacent freak shows of carnivals back then.
Yeah, so you basically have two camps. You have the quote unquote freaks, and then you have like because I can't really say like regular people because like, you know, the clown, I forget what his name is, but like he's with them, he loves them and respects them. You have Venus, who, mm-hmm. you know, I think she's just an animal trainer. I don't think she has a specific job. I do know like one of her first moments in the movie is her with a seal.
Yeah.
But other than those two and the guy at the park, mm-hmm. There's not like there's not a lot of people who you would call normal, who are really like for them and like with them, like all the like the trapeze guys, the strongman, you know, all of them. They're very much not just anti, but they're, you know, like they bully them and they treat them like garbage.
Yeah, it's very much like a social hierarchy, and you get that sense of community amongst them and how much they do care about one another.
It feels like they're a family. The others are coworkers. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's like they all have a respect for each other, but one side it's a lifestyle, the other it's a job as well.
And Well, what happens is somebody comes into some money,
That would be
and
Hans,
it would be Hans.
our star, who, by the way, I found out something interesting in my research for this.
Mm-hmm.
I found out that the reason why throughout this whole movie you never see Hans and Frida like kiss or anything is because they're actually real life brother and sister.
Oh.
They also had a third sibling who was also small like them, but she's not in the movie.
Okay.
But I thought that was kind of interesting. I guess, and for 1932, I guess it's like,
Yeah.
you're not really going to find a whole lot of actors to fill that role, so you get what you get. And I felt they definitely did a good job of playing her up as a good wife, not wife, but fiance character,
Yeah.
while without having to go full, like, romance and having to make them kiss or anything like that. Because, like, not knowing that, it's not that weird of an idea, but when you know that, it's like, that would be weird. That would just be really weird. But I thought that was a nice little nugget of information I found out.
Yeah. So he comes into money, and then I guess we could say the hilarity ensues, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
This movie isn't without its fun little moments. I think
Yeah.
one of the most unintentionally funny moments for me, more so because of how out of nowhere it comes, is the part where the clown is like, "Come on, the bearded ladies just gave birth," and I'm like, it's not funny because the bearded lady had a child. It's more like we don't even know that there's. I don't think we even know that there's a bearded lady in this circus, and all of a sudden now she's giving birth to this child, and it's never mentioned again. That's one thing about this movie. There is your main story with Hans and Cleopatra, and then stuff happens with other people. Like this is like world building at its like most primitive, and I don't mean that as an insult. I mean this as it's kind of the first time I watched it, I was irritated, but when I really thought about it for that period of time, it's very ambitious.
Yeah, it's a big ensemble cast, and they're trying to build it up. And when I say hilarity ensues, I am purely joking because we see how greed really kind of impacts these people in this smaller society. Because we've always talked about how the carnival circuit was like its own kind of beast. Right. If anybody's looked into the history of carnivals, and this movie is known for the two main scenes. There's the dinner scene, and then there's the end kind of revenge.
Right.
But yeah, so the two main scenes being the Gooble Gobble, one of us,
which is which is a little bit of foreshadowing.
Yes.
Which you don't think about until you get to the end.
Yeah, and then I think the big peak is that final kind of sequence and like how creative some of those shots are, and kind of how they've you had the rain and just like it's
the chaos.
It's really great. That's where you see Todd Browning's horror movie like real instincts kick in, and it's great. But like if you go in thinking this is going to be a scary movie, guess again.
I mean, it's a scary movie if you're an insensitive jerk.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think sometimes when people are doing like their research and like looking in the history of like horror cinema, like this movie will get brought up, and I feel like that kind of gives it this extra hype, and I think it just kind of builds up these expectations where it's really a very grounded, dramatic movie for a long period of time.
I mean, I honestly feel like if you took away the gimmick of the freak show and you just put like quote regular people in those roles, people would say there would be no horror element at all. Like I think a lot of it has to do with people's opinion of people that they deem not normal.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of it came from. And I think someone like Todd Browning like actually wanted to take these people and be like and actually like show them off, not in not in an offensive way, like a circus freak show would do, but to show off, like, no, these are people. They're have their own issues. They have their own, not just issues. They have their own things that make them happy. They, they have their own joys, sorrows, everything like that. Right down to I'm calling them what they were called in the movie, the pinheads.
Yeah.
I mean, you see how they are, and they seem pretty happy.
Yeah, and
you know what I mean.
It's
happier than I am.
It's certainly it's a more it's a more layered film than I think some people want to give it credit for, or at least people who are looking back at it like that.
Yeah, I think this is definitely one of those movies where it depends on the lens you're watching it with. And the most interesting part about all of this is all of this stuff, well, depending on which version you're watching, either just under or just over an hour.
Yeah.
Because there is a version, apparently, I watched it on the Criterion channel, which I don't know if this is a thing with the Criterion channel, but the subtitles absolutely suck on Freaks. When I put them on, when I put them on, they were way too delayed.
Oh, I didn't watch it on the Criterion channel. I own a copy of a DVD, pre-Criterion release.
Right.
So that's what I watched. So I don't know if that's like a weird thing with their subtitles, like in general, if it was just like a website thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if it was the Criterion channel itself. I don't know if it was the app on the Fire Stick. I don't know if it's like this on the Criterion release.
Yeah.
But it was not good. Which there were certain moments that's part of the reason why I had to watch the movie twice, was because I had to go back with the knowledge that I had, and certain things made sense, certain things I understood more. But I mean, I'm glad I did, because the first time I watched it, I wasn't really feeling it. Like, I watched the movie, I got what was going on,
100%.
and I was just in a different mood.
I agree.
When I went into it the second time, and I think you definitely got to be in the right mood for a movie like this.
Yeah, I actually can 100% relate, because I bought the DVD years ago, super excited to watch it. Again, having people build it up, and they're like, it's Todd Browning. This is early horror cinema. This is it's great. Is this movie made waves and everything, right? And I watched it, and I was really underwhelmed. And I was like, this is just like a drama with like a cool scene at the end with your horror like cinema. But rewatching it, it's like, oh no, this is a much more layered story, and it's much more, you can appreciate it more, I think, when it's properly kind of advertised to you.
But you know what? In a way, they were right. Because they said it was groundbreaking, and it changed the game. And in a way, it really did. It's just, it took a long time for that to come to fruition. But like when you see, like I said, when you watch it now, I think now is probably as good a time as ever to watch it, because now you can now the average person would watch it through the lens that I think Todd Browning wanted everyone to watch it through.
Todd with 1 D, by the way, guys.
Yeah, you don't want to watch the one with 2 Ds.
So, at the end of this all, would you recommend this to the general audience?
Well, I gotta go one or the other. I don't want to be.
You don't want to wish wash.
I don't want to be.
You don't want to be me all the time.
I don't want to be a middle of the road Randy here. But as much as I like it, I'm gonna have to say no.
Yeah.
I think this is a movie that, one, you've already got to be interested in to go into. This is not a movie that you just go like, oh, like this seems interesting. Like, you have to like know it exists and be interested in it to watch it. I think once you do, you're gonna be, you're gonna enjoy it. But for me, it just doesn't feel. It feels like the kind of movie that like the general audience. It's so weird. It's like, while I do think the general audience nowadays would accept it more, just given like its age and stuff, just the movie itself. I mean, it's as preserved as it can be.
Yeah.
And with some people, like the kind of pacing and the style just doesn't gel with them. And I don't think this is a movie that you could show that person who would feel that way and it would change their mind. And then people who are interested in it, it depends on what you're looking for. If you're just looking for an interesting, little movie, then yeah, I think it would be worth your time. But if you're like you were saying, the kind of person who's expecting a horror movie, you're gonna be kind of disappointed.
You're gonna be disappointed.
So I would say no, but with an asterisk. I would say no, but if you generally are interested in this movie specifically and not like the idea of it or the hype behind it, yes.
Yeah, to kind of piggyback off of that, I think the people, like, it's still relevant.
Probably more relevant now than it was then.
But it's relevant in kind of an abstract way. Like, we're trying to be more inclusive as a society, at least I feel so. And we're trying to kind of accept people as they are. And, you know, I think, like, the ideas are there. The problem is we're also looking at it now from a lens of, there's a lot of younger people that maybe aren't familiar with like carnivals and like the idea of freak shows.
Right.
And it might just kind of, it's like almost anachronistic. Right. I will also say no, I wouldn't recommend to the general audience.
It's so weird considering how we're saying how good the movie is, and yet it's gotta be really confusing for you guys for you watching.
No, well, it's a movie. It has its virtues. It has a lot of them. There's a lot of things I wish were better with it. I wish that the perception was even better, because like I feel like that first initial watch just really colored a lot of my feelings for the movie. Still, like, there's still moments where I'm like, I wish there was more here.
Right. And then you have to remind yourself this was the 1930s, and that would have been very expensive.
Yeah, so there's I'm constantly fighting myself on that. But there's plenty to get from it, and I feel like a film history buff would enjoy it, or at least respect it. But I don't think the general audience, I don't think it's going to do much for them. It's a brisk watch, which also helps its case.
Yeah, like I said, depending on which version, it's either just over or just under an hour.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even if you do want to experiment with it, you're not taking up too much of your time.
Yes.
And it's also a unique situation because, like, you know, to an extent, I think you could make this movie today. To an extent.
It would be interesting. I would wonder, like, how, or
in
what way they could do it.
The only thing I would say would have to be a must. It would have to be a period piece.
Yeah.
You can't do a modern day freak show.
No.
And if you do, you're gonna end up going into Rob Zombie territory, and that is not in the spirit of Todd Browning.
Yeah. But I'm gonna have to say no. As much as I can talk about how good of an effect the movie has and like how interesting it is, but yeah, I'm gonna have to say no. But that's what we think. Feel free to disagree. Yeah. Feel free to agree. If it's something that, even though we said no, you still want to watch, do it and leave a comment down below. Let us know what you think. And check out all our stuff. We got more on the channel. You can always like this video. You can subscribe to the channel and get all those videos. Hit the bell to get notifications about them. And just keep staying tuned for more Mint Condish content.
That's right. And since Wade's not here, can I do it?
Sure.
So that's going to do it for Criterion Connection. I'm Scott.
And I'm still Joe.
And we'll see you later.